Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Esteemed Gentlemen podcast for Thursday, March 4th. March the 4th be with you.
It's May the 4th. Dumbass.
And joined, as always, we have the big cat, Tyler's son.
Hello.
And we have Eric Deshane as well.
Hello, what? No intro for me or nickname yet, Scott? What the fuck?
You're gonna be the stealth spider.
I take it back. I take it back.
I'll work. Next week we'll have a better one. I promise.
We'll workshop that. Yeah.
And today we're gonna be talking about movies and TV shows that fucked us up when we were kids. Everybody's got a few. Looking at my list, I don't have too many, so I'm gonna go and point in at Tyler because he's got a few. So let's start with you, Tyler. What are some that screwed you up when you were a kid?
You want me to go through all of them, or?
I don't know, just give me a couple for right now.
Okay, so a couple. So the ones that really messed me up when I was a kid, I was very little. One of the first ones, the earliest memories that really messed me up was Braveheart. Because I don't even know how old I was, honestly. I was being babysat at my grandparents, and Braveheart had come out. And I was watching Braveheart. And there's a scene at the beginning of the movie with this little boy, and he's walking, and he goes into this cabin. And there's a whole bunch of people hanging by their necks from the rafters. And I was like, why are all their eyes open? They're floating around like that. Why are they? I don't understand. Because I didn't have any concept of what death was. I had like no idea. And it just kind of like made me wonder like what was it, because it was just so eerie and so messed up. I'm like, how come they're not talking? Like he's like walking up to them, and how come like his dad's right there? Like what's happening? That really like really messed me up when I was little. And then another one that really messed me up too was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, when the big, like one of the boss bad guys, I guess, one of these big thugs, he's like this big shirtless guy, and they're doing these sacrifices in this big volcano pit. And what he does is he reaches in and he's like, Kalima! And he rips their hearts out, and it's like steaming, like he's putting his hand through and rips the heart out. And the guys are like, oh, it's still moving. And then like, as they're getting into the lava, the heart catches on fire as soon as their body does. That like, I was terrified. I couldn't sleep for I don't know how long after that one. Those were the two biggest ones for sure.
How old were you, like, you think, when that happened?
I'm going to say probably I was in kindergarten, so probably about 6 years old, 5, 6 years old. Yeah, probably.
You watched, like, Braveheart in like kindergarten too?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Holy shit.
I think it was before I was even in school I watched that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the reason my list is like small is because I don't know, like growing up, like my parents never let me watch like rated R movies and stuff like that. So.
Oh god.
Don't get me wrong, my parents never did either. No. It's whenever we went to go visit grandma and grandpa. They're like, you can watch whatever you want. Oh, does this look good? You can watch it with us, sure. Just don't cry. That's what they used to tell me. Don't cry if you're gonna watch these movies because they're scary. And I was like, oh, I'm not scared. I'm like, oh my god.
So did you watch the first Indiana Jones like before this, or was that the?
No, that was the first one I watched, and then I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it's obviously not in chronological order,
right?
So, and then I was like, oh, I want to know more. And then the first one wasn't nearly as scary as the second one.
Even like when they're like faces like melting off and like.
That's the third one, I believe.
No,
it's when that.
Raiders
That is the first one when they open up the casket, right?
Yeah,
yep.
That's right. Yes. I got that one mixed up with the third. My bad.
The one that guy like ages super fast and dies, and
yes, when he drinks from the
wrong chalice.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Like if I was a kid, that would have fucked me up. Like seeing like their fucking eyeballs like melting and like their face melting and like what am I watching?
No, the whole ripping the heart out, that just messed me up big time.
Yeah. I could see it for sure.
And like when Indiana Jones was possessed and he's trying to kill the little boy, I was like, I don't understand. Why would he do that?
Round, no.
Dr. Jones.
So annoying. I hate him.
He was the best.
No, he sucks.
I didn't mind. Short Round was fine. It was his girlfriend, love interest, the whole.
She also sucks.
Yeah, and she marries the producer, so she works out that way. So yeah, that's what happens.
Goes, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another one, obviously, was Silence of the Lambs.
Mm.
The part that kind of weirded me out actually was probably at the end when Hannibal Lecter peeled one of the cops' faces off and used it as a mask to pose as one of the injured officers and got wheeled out in the ambulance. And then it was like, oh, shock! Hannibal's actually, the cop, and he peels the skin off his face and then bites at the EMT guy in the ambulance and gets away at the end. That always unnerved me, knowing that Hannibal was still out there, because I was. I believed pretty much everything that I watched.
Yeah, you were like young enough to think that was real.
He's gonna come and eat me. Yeah, with a nice Chianti and some fava beans.
You in like preschool when you watched that one, or what?
Yep. Yeah, I was in grade 2 probably, or 3.
See, I never watched that one growing up. I remember seeing the cover of it, freaking me out so much. I didn't want to go near it. The picture of that woman with the butterfly in the mouth there.
Yep. Clarice Starling and the moth.
It freaked me out. I'm like, no, this movie. I don't want to watch this movie. But now as an adult, I'm like, this movie's actually pretty good. But
it is good.
That cover alone freaked me out as a kid. I never liked it for that cover alone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then my superhero Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It was kind of a weird twist because he was always like such a jacked hero. Nothing could hurt him kind of thing. Was Predator. And he was facing an enemy that wiped out all these super tough guys. These big macho guys just got shredded by this thing. And I'm like, oh my God, like Arnie's got his work cut out for him. And like how they were fighting and how injured he was getting. And that one really messed me up. When we would go out in the woods and stuff, I would like look up in the trees and look for that little shimmer of light. There's the Predator up there gonna blast me with his blaster or decapitate me with his wicked ass claws. That was a good movie too. And and then
let's save your last 3 or last 2, I guess. But yeah, like I guess you have a lot because I guess you were like watching so many movies with your grandparents at such a young age, which is kind of interesting. My grandparents would definitely like not let me watch any of these.
Oh, absolutely,
at all.
Same.
My grandparents were the greatest.
Super. They'd be like, "What's a VCR? We don't have one of those."
Right?
But yeah,
you say that. My grandparents were the first ones to get all the technology stuff. Like even when I started gaming, like my grandparents bought a PC that could run like computer games. Like that was a whole different thing to me. They were always, pretty up there with DVD when DVD player came out and stuff too. Like, yeah, they were very big into movies.
Yeah, I guess like that was my thing. Like growing up, like like my parents never let me watch this stuff. But I think also because my parents aren't really into movies like at all, like or at least weren't. The only VHSs we had in the house were kids VHSs. I think the only adult movie was like they somehow got a copy of The Perfect Storm or something like that. And like that's the only adult movie that was ever in our house. They never went to the theaters unless it was bringing us to go see some kids movie or something in the theaters. They never rented any movies unless it was like for us. Like it was just, like the only like movies I remember them watching when I was like younger would be like when like Star Wars, like the prequels came out on DVD or something, like they watched that like themselves later that night. But like growing up they never watched movies. My dad was always watching sports and stuff, so it was like it makes sense why I never kind of saw some of this stuff, that why my gap in movie watching is so huge, like why I've not seen so many of these classics that everybody else has.
Yeah, because my parents were big into movies too, but we just watched, family-friendly movies. Like the Disney shows, because I had 3 younger brothers, obviously, and we watched Disney, we watched PG movies and stuff like that. Like, and I got to sometimes stay up with them because they knew that I was already corrupted from my grandparents. So I could watch some movies with my parents. Like every Friday, I remember it was always the highlight when I was a kid. We'd go to St. Lana's store, rent 2-3 movies, have them for the weekend, watch 1 movie a night. We were so excited, man. I just remember go in the store and you get to pick. You can only pick 2, or you can only pick 3. Or when we went to Sunshine Video, 7 for $7. But the new releases were a little bit more money, so you can only rent like 2. So you got to really pick, and it was like standing in a big library of amazingness. I was just at home there. It was such a wonderful feeling. Good times. I watched so many movies. So many movies.
Yeah, we got most of our movies from the library.
Oh, there you go.
Which,
Yeah.
there's not that a lot of great stuff at the library.
No.
Eric, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, no, I can go. Mine as well isn't the greatest length of list. It's a pretty short one too. But these are ones I can just think of as of a few little while ago. Like my first one is when I was extremely young. I want to say like 3, 4 years old. A movie came out called Rockadoodle. It's an animated movie by Don Bluth. If you know his work, like from the Great Mouse Detective, American Tail. What else does it be in
Five
here?
Goes West.
Five Goes West, Anastasia. Like
Yeah.
the really well animated movies that really focus a lot on the dark as
Yeah.
well. And the villain in this movie here is this owl called the Grand Duke, and he's voiced by Christopher Plummer. And watching it now, it shows its age. It's very lightly animated, but it's the tone of how they're drawn. Like at an early age, like really messes with my mind. And I was always terrified watching this movie. This character, the way he's voiced and acted and drawn, it was so scary growing up. And I love that movie. I think I watched like almost every day as a kid. Like my
Yeah.
siblings got sick of that movie because I watched it so freaking much. But I love this stuff. But this character, this Grand Duke, this owl, this was so menacing, so frightening.
So even though it messed you up, you still enjoyed
Oh,
it.
exactly. It's weird in that sense, but like this character, I didn't really like understand like this villain, even though he scared me at times. Like, just the way he spoke, and Christopher, if you know Christopher Plummer, like he can be a great actor, and he did it so well, and I still love the movie for it. So
They're just looking
That
at
was-
pictures of him. He's like,
yeah,
it's kind of hard to imagine you get scared of this guy. Yes,
I know you think so too, but just if you watch the movie, you can just see how it's animated, and it's like, fuck, this. I don't know what it was, if it is, if even it's not anymore, but it just, I remember it terrified me. I was very young though, still. So and then from that, I think one that most kids had at the same time was when Jurassic Park came out, and the effects of that made it seem so real with the dinosaurs that like, holy crap, like that really like the thought of this seeing a T-Rex out in the wild, as irrational as it was, still terrified me. Like just especially when you see the scene with the kids in the truck, like getting attacked by the T-Rex. It's that's when you feel in their shoes and you feel scared. I remember feeling like terrified of that too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is where I say I haven't seen those movies.
Scott, you have not seen Jurassic Park.
I explained my parents didn't watch movies, so
That
we
is
didn't get to
no
watch
freaking
movies.
excuse to not watch Jurassic Park.
I think
Park.
You know what?
Holy shit, Scott! I don't know if I'm questioning our friendship right now.
What? I've seen the best one, and that's Jurassic World. I'm just kidding. That was terrible. It was so bad it makes me
Dude,
not want to
if
watch.
we were in the
Jurassic
same room
Park.
right now, I'd be glaring so freaking hard right now. I'm giving you daggers right now. Fuck.
My favorite
I can't believe
Jurassic
you.
Park movie is Jurassic World. My favorite Terminator movie is Terminator, the one with Christian Bale, whatever it's called.
Okay.
Well, Tyler, you agree with me on that it was terrifying, like
The first
how
one.
it was. Yes, the first one, and then yeah. So
It was the first actual like really big CGI
mhm,
movie that where it really like was
Mhm.
perfected, and they
Yeah.
melded the whole like prosthetics and stuff and whatever animatronics with CGI.
yeah,
Honestly, like it was so real. When I was a kid, I remember like I was sleeping on a couch bed on a hideaway bed or whatever, watching this
Mhm.
movie with my parents because my younger brothers had to go to bed. They said, "Are you sure you want to watch this? Because it's gonna be a scary movie." And I'm like, "I want to
Mhm.
see this because the dinosaurs. I saw the trailer for it. I really want to see this." And I watched it, and that I'm surprised actually I didn't list that one, but
Mhm.
the other one messed me up more than that one did. But that one was just like
yeah,
seeing the T-Rex, seeing the brontosauruses and stuff, and then
Yeah.
the little spitter dinosaur
the frills.
with Dennis,
Yeah, with Newman.
with Newman. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And then like he's chasing him and spits in his face, and it's like blinding him. He gets into his truck and he's trying to get away, and all of a sudden he like looks over and you hear the hiss, the tss, and he's in the truck with them,
Mhm.
and it makes that noise. And oh my god, that
Yeah.
messed me up.
Because well, the first one was bad. Then the second one, Jurassic Park 2 came out, and there's a scene where the T-Rex runs wild in is it San Diego, I think.
San Diego.
He tears up the town and everything else, and he goes into like a yard. Like kid wakes up, sees the T-Rex like in his window, and like
There's
wakes
a-
up his parents and everything else. And like I remember what scared me the most, what gave me like nightmares, was I would just wake up and just see like the T-Rex's eye inside of his head in my window. That,
Through the window.
that was my nightmare for years. Was just waking up to that and seeing that and being like, oh my freaking god, yeah, that was my fear, was just seeing that.
Yeah.
And that scene, it happened in that movie too. So yeah,
He's chewing on a chain
yeah,
that's connected to the doghouse. It's like a bloody chain on the end of it. The doghouse falls out of its
Yeah.
mouth. It's like, oh my god.
And then my last one that I think really was irrational, was extremely well was the movie Tremors back in 1990. Like,
Yep.
it's a very basic monster movie, but it's the one where it made me afraid of the unknown, because that movie does really well. Like, you don't see the monster till about halfway through the movie.
Yep.
So it's all stuff. You don't see what happens. You just know people are dying and how they're dying, right? But
You're always seeing the aftermath.
exactly. So like, it made me afraid of like the fact that, oh yeah, a giant worm's going to come out and eat me out of the ground. That's never going to happen. But I was still afraid for some dumb reason.
Yep.
And it was the fact that I didn't see it coming, and it was that unknown factor that freaked me out so much with that. And yeah, it's irrational. Think about it now, it's stupid, but it was a serious fear I had, and it was something silly.
As a kid, though, like just imagine, like if you made like one little step, they could sense the tremor in the ground, and then you just come up, you're gone.
Back in my head, I was thinking like, hey, there's a rock over there. If I run fast enough, I should make it to that rock. And it's just like stupid like that, but it messed me up. It really did.
Tremors is based off a Stephen King thing, right? Or am I crazy?
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is. I think it's
original.
Yeah, it's definitely original.
Maybe I'm thinking about the Langoliers.
Could be.
Maybe. I mean, it's not a uncommon monster. Movie that came out with Hugh Grant back in the 80s, same exact concept. I can't remember what it is, but it's some sort of like giant white worm that eats people. Same exact way. You never see it till the end, and it eats people from under the ground. It's not an original concept, but the movie itself is original. So
okay.
Yeah, I was thinking of the Langoliers.
Oh
which
yeah,
are weird fucking orb things with teeth that eat.
Oh yeah, they look almost the exact same thing. Yeah,
That eat.
Yeah.
Everything. I don't know what whatever.
They're from a different dimension or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And this one, they never had. There's no story, no reason. Just there's these giant monsters now, and we had to deal with it. And Kevin Bacon's in it. It's a basic monster movie. Now I love it. It's one of my favorite movies ever. Now.
Yeah.
And, but as a kid, it screwed me up.
Did you watch all the other ones, like the other four?
That's the thing. I watched up to 3. The third one, and then now it's like the Sharknado series. Now they're making something this last year. I'm like, why?
Really? Wow.
Oh yeah, they made one last year, a winter one. I'm like, why are they ruining my franchise?
The only one I haven't seen yet either. Yeah. I fell asleep at the third one where they're flying, and it's always the same guy in all the movies. Mm-hmm. It's always that hillbilly gun.
Guy, yeah.
But the Western one, you know what? Out of all of them, the best one is the Western when they were first discovered.
But that doesn't make canon. It's not canon sense though, because it said in the second one they were produced or created like through bioengineering or something like that. So
they said that they were like dated back to prehistoric times.
Okay, I forget. And honestly, after 2, it's like whatever. Like I remember watching 2 and seeing when they mutate when they can walk on land too. That was like
you can only see your body heat.
Yeah. But that too, that also stemmed from my fear of I realizing like the fear of the unknown. But it was the movies I was afraid of growing up. It was the ones where it was relied mostly on practical effects and what you didn't see.
Yeah,
the fear of the fear of what you don't know. Your imagination can go crazy. Those terrified me the most when I was younger. Not seeing the villain, not seeing the monster.
Yeah,
that
like movies like The Thing. Knowing what it looked like until you see it like 3/4 of the way through the movie. So you're like not knowing what or who or what's even happening, but you just know that something terrible is happening. Now that is good film.
Yeah, now I'm finding like we're doing the opposite, where it's more show don't tell, where it should be it's more show and not tell.
Yeah, you want some
mystery with it, right? So
I think so.
I know in the first Jurassic Park, and I hate the spoiler for you, Scott, because you never fucking seen it yet.
I feel like everybody's talked about it, and I've heard every single quote.
The first very scene, it's terrifying, but you never see the dinosaur in it though. Like that to me, that was awesome. Like looking at it now, it's awesome video making right there, filmmaking right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like when they're lowering the cow in.
Yeah.
You just see the tails on the top, and then just like when they bring the bag back up, and it's just like a wet saddle.
It's like
blood and shit. It's like, oh my god, I don't want to know what's in there. I do.
So now we know another reaction we did to watch, Scott, because you never seen Jurassic Park.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm shaking
won't
my head
enjoy
in
it.
disgust.
I just feel like it might be too late for me, you know?
It's
No
funny
one-
that you say that because Carly and I watched all the Hannibal Lecter series except for Hannibal Rising. And
Mhm.
watching Silence of the Lambs, I'm like, man, this movie gave me nightmares. I watch it again. It's like, this movie has dated considerably.
Really?
It's the acting is still very, very good.
Yeah.
And all of your favorite Family Guy quotes, you can find them all in Silence of the Lambs. They're all in there.
Mhm.
So it's like, but Hannibal the Cannibal still
Mhm.
very disturbing.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's like my thing. Like I don't know if it's like the effects would be dated, but like it's just lit over the years of like hearing clever girl and you know like welcome to Jurassic Park.
Oh, it's yeah.
You know like
You've been over memed by the movie. Unfortunately.
yeah, exactly. Like so I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe
She
I'll
did it. Son of a bitch did it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like
You planned it, and then you sold it. You sold it. Yeah.
I've heard it all already. That's why it's like I feel like I've seen the movie. Like I don't know.
All the have the movies in pieces.
Right.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll move on to I have 3 as well. And so like yeah, like I was explaining earlier, like my parents, you know, we never used to rent movies. So like it's very interesting how I found these movies. So the first one is Never Ending Story, which was a library rental classic. Got it from the library many times. And yeah, that movie just like it's such a dark movie for kids. Like like at some point some of them you don't really think about, but like the ones that stood out was the horse getting stuck in the swamp of
God.
like awful scene. Another one was like if you guys remember, like you had to like go past these like big giant like statues that were like supposed to judge him or something like that, and it has like this like real intense music and it's like doing like close-ups and like cutting back and forth to like close-ups of their faces and the statue's face and stuff like that, and it's just like, oh my god, what the fuck is gonna happen? And all of a sudden it shoots the laser at him, but Atreyu's able to dodge out of the way, and like that always freaked me out as well. But the thing that I think freaked me out the most was the freaking wolf, the darkness inside the cave, and it's just like you just see his like. Now it's just like this is a crappy kind of weird costume, but back then it's like this thing's evil, and then it like lunges at him, and you're like, you're just freaking out.
Like your concept of all that stuff, you think it's all real.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not looking at the details like you are now as an adult, right? That's the whole thing with that. It's
exactly.
Yeah. And remember that too. It's Jim Henson that does all the Muppeteering in that too, so it looks awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, if it does a good enough job at whatever age you're watching it, 5-6 years old, to convey it being like a real thing, right? So
and even like the big white dog in the sky thing terrified me. Like I would not get on that thing. Like that thing was really freaky to me. Like everything about that movie was freaky. I'm surprised I actually forgot about that one. Maybe I pushed it out of my memory because that actually
blocked it out.
In the swamp, I forgot completely about that.
Mm-hmm.
Holy man!
And like one part, like I didn't even like get into like watching this movie like when I was much older, was like, remember like the big stone giant guy or whatever?
Yep.
Oh yes.
And he has like two friends. Like one's like a snail guy and like one's like a regular dude, I think. If I'm remembering properly. But he like I think what's his name? Atreyu like comes across him. It's been a while since I watched it, so I need to rewatch it, but if my memory serves me correctly, he like comes across him and the giant is like telling him he's like I got strong hands, and but like he's explaining how his grip wasn't good enough, and like his 2 friends got like sucked up by the nothingness or whatever it was, and it's like he's just like telling him how like he's like strong hands are good for nothing, and I'm like, oh my god, that's like really dark, but like as a kid, that totally like flew over my head. It's like I don't know what this guy's talking about, but much later in life, it's like, damn son.
Yeah.
Yeah, messed up. And another movie that screwed me up, and this one was one that we would catch on TV all the time. Was The Mummy, and that is the scarab beetles scene where they find the beetles in the wall and they're like, look at these jewels and stuff like that, and they pop them all out and they bring them back to camp, and you got the big fat dude who's like greedy and shit and like drops his sack full of them on the sand, and for some reason when they came into contact with sand they came back to life, and they start crawling underneath this guy's skin, and it scared the shit out of me. I was like, this is the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, holy fuck. Like, they're underneath his skin, and he's, like, screaming in pain, and you're like, oh, what the hell is this? Like, holy shit. Like, oh, man. Yeah, that was really messed me up. Like, I was like, I'm never going to Egypt. I don't know if these things are real. Like, I don't want no bugs crawling underneath my skin. Screw that.
Yeah,
that's great.
Great movie.
That was a good movie.
Yes.
That was a very good.
And my last film here is another one I caught on TV when I was like probably like 11, 12 years old. And the reason why I tuned into it was because I was flipping through the TV guide, and I saw the N for nudity on the TV guide. So I'm like, well, let's see what we see here. And sure enough, saw some boobs. And I was like, nice. And then, like, half an hour later, some dude's face gets cut off. And they're fucking holding the thing up. And they're like, look, he's your husband's face. And they're jiggling it in front of her face. And he's talking. And like, look at me. And like being like a puppeteer with it. And I'm like,
yeah.
Holy. I was like, I should not be watching this movie. And I turned it off after that. Yeah. I was like, and then, yeah, I struggled to fall asleep after that. It's like, this was a mistake. I am not old enough for this. I should not watch this. Turn it off right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that whole scene's messed up.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It's a great movie. Great movie, though. As an adult, it's a great movie.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the guts to ever watch it again. I don't know. It's definitely his masterpiece. Out of all the weird stuff that Rob Zombie's put out, that's definitely his masterpiece for sure.
What else did he do? He did that first, or was that House of a Thousand Corpses first?
House of a Thousand Corpses first, which was an over-budgeted gong show.
Yes.
And then the second one was very polished. And yeah,
well, it was more to his style. I think he's one of those. He's like those directors who can function well on smaller budgets and smaller kind of time frames like that. So
that's what he said too. He says like in the first one he got comfortable because he had a huge budget. He had like so much money. Like, well, I don't know where I'm going to put all the rest of this money. Well, let's just make more weird outfits and more set and whatever, right? Whereas this one's like, Kate, you have this much time to get the movie done, and you have a fraction of the budget, so you had to be way more creative, had to cut some stuff, had to change a few things, and it was just
him and Rodriguez. I find they're similar in that sense, where they can make movies like on that small budget, and they get more creative that way. I think so.
Look at Planet Terror. I loved that movie. That was a low budget movie, but man, was it epic! It was so good. Well, to me anyway.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you too. It's a good movie.
Yeah, but yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we got Tyler's got two more here. Why don't you finish it
off here?
Okay, I'll run through pretty quick. So another one, I've heard actually a few people say the same thing. But when I was a kid, we watched Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm like, oh, this is a good kid show, but this will be lame. And then it was not lame. It was actually really good. The singing and the songs were really good, but everything in the nightmare realm or wherever the fuck they were was absolutely terrifying. Like I've never seen like the animation. Weird, that little brain thing with the glasses, and then that weird freaking like looked like a big like burlap sack with a mouth walking like talking. What the heck was that thing? Like I don't remember much of it because I only watched it once because I could never go back to it.
Really?
For some
I remember watching that too. Same thing, like being like I'm not terrified, but I'm not sure I like this. I just feel off about this right now. And I wasn't scared, but it was definitely like one of those like I just feel weird watching this. I just feel off. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very unsettling, like extremely unsettling, like, the whole entire
Yeah.
time. And the music was good. I'm like, yeah, this is good. Yeah, I'm having a good time. Yeah, yeah. And then it was over. I'm like, oh, thank God that's over because man, like it was a beautifully crafted show. Don't get me wrong, like it was amazingly well done. But just
Mhm.
I don't know. As a kid, I think it was a little on the dark side.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
even after all the other shows that I've watched, it still got to me.
mhm,
But the one that really took the cake for me when I was a kid, another one that I watched, my grandparents' house. Actually, my grandpa was working, and it was in the afternoon during the daytime. And I made sure it was during the daytime because I knew it was an 18A movie, not just R, but like 18A. It was Candyman,
mhm.
the original, older movie. And the whole premise of the show is like it's like a Bloody Mary kind of idea. So if you stand in front of the mirror and you say Candyman 3 times, the Candyman will appear behind you. First, you'll hear some bees or wasps swarming, and then you'll see him, and he's got this great big meat hook for a hand, and he just butchers you like right there in front of the mirror and just kills you.
It's like
So
Bloody
this
Mary. No, that is Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
right? That's pretty much the whole thing, and I don't remember at all, honestly. Like I know that he was a tormented spirit, like he was a slave, and then they chopped his hand off. He was like a honey collector, I think. I'm pretty sure. And then he was just like full of so much hatred that he was just basically like some kind of phantom of some kind that just haunted. Like if you ever said his name, then he would show up if you said it in front of a mirror, and then you shut the light off. That's when. Like as soon as you shut the light off, then he appears.
Another
So
one, another movie that I remember growing up and seeing the cover art for it on the back of the VHS and being like, nope, I don't want to see this movie at all because it looks fucking terrifying.
oh yeah, and so the to put fuel on the flame of my terror, my grandmother just paused the movie, took my hand, and said, "Come with me." She's got this like 8.5 inch long Benson and Hedges cigarette in her mouth, and she's grabbing me. She's bringing me to the bathroom. Come with me, Peavy. Come here. Come here. So she turns on the light, puts me in front of the mirror, and she's like, "Okay, say his name 3 times. I'll shut
Oh
the light
my
off, and I'll prove to you
God.
that it's not real." I'm not. My grandmother, I loved her to death. Bless her soul. She was one of the greatest women I've ever had the pleasure of ever being, getting to know and having part of my family. But that moment, I was like, Grandma, you're fucking insane. Why would you do this? Like, why are you doing this to me? Like, I'm just a kid. You can't be doing this to me. And she's like, Candyman, Candyman, Candyman. Turn the light off, and I'm just like holding my. There's no one here. She's like, if you don't like the movie, watch something else. I'm like, I'm gonna watch something else. That stuck with me. That terrified me. But actually, her doing that made me realize, okay, yes, it is just a movie, but
Mhm.
it's still terrifying. It still resonated with me for at least a year after that.
Yeah. And I think I like my parents might have did a disservice to me by like not showing me like maybe like some like horror movies, like maybe not like super hardcore ones, but like looking at you, Tyler, it's like you can watch a horror movie. I'm like, nah, this is scary. I don't want to do that. But like I grew
Right.
up like I only watched Toy Story. I only watched Never Ending Story. That's as hardcore as it got. Growing up. So like, and I like now I can't watch The Grudge or The Ring or something like that.
Sheltered child. Yeah.
Yes. And see, now I have to watch those to get like the blood pumping. It's like, oh yeah, this
Wow.
is. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Mhm.
it's desensitized me for sure because I can see like the fakeness and whatever, like the jump scares I can usually see coming. But a lot of these new movies, they're getting so creative now, so that's good.
Yeah.
Like Invisible Man. You guys haven't seen Invisible Man?
No.
Watch it.
Or
Watch it.
like Get Out too. To me, I that's one of those like it's not specifically a horror movie,
Oh yeah.
but it was still unnerving and still scary. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole different kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
you're literally like, sitting there, like you don't realize that you're squeezing the
Yeah.
arms of your armchair the whole
Yeah.
time you're watching it. Because
Mhm.
it's so unnerving.
Like
You're
that's
like,
that's
what?
kind of the direction it's going. I've never seen Us yet, but I'm wondering if you guys haven't, if that's like
I
that one
haven't
as
yet
well.
either. I've been meaning
No.
to. I've
Yeah.
wanted to, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Jordan Peele, he can make some movies. He's
He
good.
can.
Yeah.
Almost like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, almost.
Right.
Mhm,
We can all sit together and watch that one.
mhm.
Yeah.
Scott's like,
What, Us or
Us and the Invisible Man.
Invisible Man? Maybe.
Yep.
Maybe, or not.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's gonna do it for this episode here. We're at 35 minutes, a little bit longer than the last two, but that's okay. We're kind of in the same zone we're kind of going for there. If you enjoyed this episode, of course, like and subscribe here on YouTube. Do the whole thing on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify as well. And then post in the comments in the YouTube as well. Let us know what movies fucked you up when you were kids. I'm curious to hear your comments.
Sure.
Yeah, and then tomorrow, of course, come back because we are going to be doing our weekly wrap up. We're going to be looking at news stories as well as just discussing what we've been playing, what we've been watching, and there's a couple big news stories that I'm super excited to talk about. So come back tomorrow. Until then, though, we'll talk to you later.
See you guys.
Take care, guys. See ya.